Here's why Samsung phones are a bloated mess. The new Galaxy S23 uses about 60 gigabytes of space for its OS right out of the box, which is a lot considering that the base model only has 128 gigs of storage, and for instance Google's Pixel phones use around 15. But Google's phones also contain a copy of the whole OS so that updates can be installed faster, and in case of an error, not make your phone just a paperweight. Just like it's an error if you're not following this channel, because you should. They include their own apps along with Google's apps, the phone carrier's apps, and apps from companies that pay them to install their apps as well. So while the hardware from Samsung is always pretty decent, apart from when their batteries are busy exploding, their software just has too many useless things that slow down performance and consume too much space. So this really isn't any new news for Samsung, but it seems that throughout the years, they've just gotten more and more stuff in it. It's just gotten more and more bloated. For instance, here we just have a few screenshots of a completely new, fresh Samsung phone, and I mean, you can just see how many apps there are. You have all the Google apps, you have all the Samsung apps, and if you don't use most of these, well, too bad, you can't uninstall them, and they're just going to be taking up space on your phone. So over here, I've just made a little list just so we can go through all of this a little bit more in a structured manner. So first of all, Samsung's Android build is four times larger than Google's. Indeed, 60 gigabytes is a lot, especially when you consider that Google's is 15, and they also have the copy of the OS, and you also have Microsoft coming in with their new tiny version of Windows 11, for which you only need 8 gigabytes of available storage for a complete PC OS. So 60 gigs seems a lot from Samsung, especially considering that they offer a base model with only 128 gigs of storage. Obviously, these things also have really great cameras. They recorded very high resolutions and stuff like that. So you actually do need a lot of storage. And it's not like it's an old Samsung phone that has a micro SD card. So you can just have all your programs on the actual main SSD. And then you can record and have all of your music and stuff like that on the micro SD card, which is totally fine. So yeah, Samsung has a reputation for producing low quality code. It's just generally a lot slower. Some features sometimes lag and stuff like that. A lot of people just aren't fans of a lot of Samsung's applications. Samsung's version of Android changes everything for change of sake, for just changing it basically. And this is because they just want to have their own OS. It's still based on Android, but they just sort of want to give the impression to their consumers that this is their own OS. This is the Samsung OS. If you want to use this OS, you have to have a Samsung phone because nobody else has something that would be remotely similar to ours, which is not true because it is just Android at the end of the day. They have many duplicate apps. So for instance, they have to include Google's apps, and then they also include their own apps. So you have Google Play Store, and then you have the Samsung App Store, and you have the Bixby and the Google Assistant, and then you have the Chrome browser and the Samsung browser. So just a lot of stuff. Pre-installed crapware from companies like Facebook, Netflix, Microsoft Office, Spotify, and carriers. So you might get all of these applications, all of these streaming services that you don't even use, and you're never going to use them, but they're taking up space. And that's exactly how it is on my Samsung TV as well. I have pretty much all the streaming platforms pre-installed on that TV. I cannot uninstall them. I barely had enough space to actually install Twitch on there, which is something that I actually use. But these companies pay Samsung, so they're just like, yeah, okay, we'll take your money and put your apps onto our phones. Samsung doesn't have AB system partitions for updates, so this is important because when there is a new update, sort of the new way since like Android 7, how it's sort of done is when there's an update, the phone will just sort of update the copy of the OS in the background and then just quickly reboot. So it's a very fast process, whereas Samsung devices are still doing it the old way, where the phone shuts down and then it takes like a while to reboot because it's just actually updating the main OS because it doesn't have a secondary OS. Not to mention that if there is an error in the OS bricks itself, you could just like not be able to do anything about it, and you just have a paperweight. So that is why this feature in Android is very good. Then we have reboots and downtime during updates. So there's basically just more of that because of what I've just described. No backup of the operating system. Again, it's very nice to have if there is an error that breaks the OS installation. And this is all pretty much the same stuff, and Samsung devices are known for selling space to the highest bidder, and that's basically, it ties in again to the fact that they have so many pre-installed apps on their devices. And I mean, not to mention, it's just sort of insulting that you would pay like over $1,000 for a new phone and you get a bunch of apps that you're never gonna use, but you cannot get them off your phone, and they're just going to be taking up storage. So it's sort of just like a slap in the face. It's like, yes, you paid for the phone, but these companies also paid to have their own apps on your phone. And also that is a great way to get to bypass restrictions, because if you have to download an app for Google Play, it's basically a lot different than if an app comes pre-installed. If an app comes pre-installed, it can have more access to various types of information and stuff like that. So someone like Facebook would really like that. So these are some of my thoughts on the current Samsung devices. Let me know what you think, and have a nice day.